Harley-Davidson is facing the biggest crisis in its history. Sales are crashing, riders are walking away, and the brand's future is on the line. After months of silence, Harley's CEO is finally speaking out. But instead of calming the storm, he just poured gas on it. He's doubling down on the company's shift toward a more woke image. As a result, loyal riders are abandoning him, and now Harley sits on the edge of a devastating collapse. Is this the start of a bold new chapter, or the final nail in the coffin of America's most iconic motorcycle brand? Stick around, because what happens next will change everything. Harley-Davidson wasn't just a motorcycle brand. It was a brotherhood, a thunderous two-wheeled rebellion forged in steel and stained with American grit. For over a century, riders didn't just buy a Harley. They pledged allegiance to an identity: freedom, power, tradition. Then came the rupture. In 2020, Harley handed the reins to Jochen Zeitz, a German-born CEO with a vision that would ignite a firestorm. Almost overnight, the brand's raw, untamed spirit began slipping away. In its place, diversity seminars, climate pledges, and slogans that read more like activist manifestos than biker mantras. And then came the quote that lit the fuse. "I was the sustainable Taliban," Zeitz boasted at a summit in Switzerland. For many Harley riders, especially veterans who faced the Taliban in combat, it was more than tone-deaf. It was personal. But it didn't stop there. Corporate rolled out mandatory diversity training. Pride events with child-friendly programming were stamped with the Harley logo. Dealerships were told to update their values. And the bikes? The iconic V-twin growl began to fade, replaced by the sterile hum of electric motors. The Rebel had been replaced by the boardroom. "I didn't buy a Harley to join a political movement," said Mike, a 30-year rider from Texas. "I bought it for the rumble, the road, and the brotherhood." Across the country, longtime Harley loyalists watched their brand morph into something unrecognizable. The open road hadn't changed, but Harley had. This wasn't just a culture shift. It was the first crack in an American legend. Harley-Davidson used to mean something. It wasn't just chrome and horsepower, it was an attitude, a rolling middle finger to conformity. It stood for working-class pride, rough edges, and the kind of freedom you don't ask permission for. When you saw that bar and shield logo, you didn't just see a bike, you saw America. But under Zeitz, that identity began to fracture. The new Harley isn't gritty, it's glossy, sanitized, rebranded for boardrooms instead of backroads. What once felt raw and untouchable now feels curated. Like a corporate Instagram post in a leather jacket, the signs of an identity crisis are everywhere. Classic branding has been replaced by sleek minimalism. Social media feeds show wind turbines, city commuters, and inclusive hashtags, but almost no trace of the outlaw spirit that made Harley great. Even the legendary Bar and Shield logo has been modernized, stripped down into a soulless emblem, more fitting a tech startup than a roaring cruiser. Behind that rebranding is a clear message. Harley no longer wants to be the brand for blue-collar rebels. It wants ESG investors, eco-conscious urbanites, and global image managers. The problem? Those people aren't buying Harleys, and the ones who did feel abandoned. The shift isn't just aesthetic, it's existential. Dealerships report that older riders feel alienated. Younger ones aren't showing up. The brand that once embodied individuality has become indistinguishable from the corporate blur it once defied. "They're chasing an audience that doesn't even ride motorcycles," said a former Harley exec, "and they've forgotten the one that built them." This isn't just a marketing misstep, it's an identity implosion. Harley-Davidson, once the roaring heartbeat of American motorcycling, is now unrecognizable. And when a brand forgets who it is, customers don't just walk away, they run. The collapse in numbers. What started as a cultural fracture has now erupted into a full-blown financial disaster. And the numbers? They're catastrophic. In Q3 alone, Harley-Davidson's sales nosedived by 28% year-over-year. Global motorcycle shipments plummeted nearly 18% compared to 2023. Rows of unsold bikes now sit motionless in dealerships, gathering dust, bleeding cash, and reminding everyone of a brand in freefall. Models that once flew off the floor now sit untouched for over 200 days, an eternity in this business. But this isn't just a slowdown, it's a nosedive. Harley's stock has cratered 35% since January, vaporizing billions in shareholder value. Wall Street isn't just worried, it's bailing. Morgan Stanley downgraded the stock. citing what they called a fundamental disconnect between brand and consumer. Translation: Harley doesn't know who it's building bikes for anymore, and the market is punishing them for it. Even Harley's most reliable revenue streams are buckling under pressure. Parts and accessories, once a profit lifeline, are down 22%. Branded merchandise, off by 18%. Financing arm, choked by a surge in delinquent payments from riders who owe more on their bikes than they're worth. And it's getting worse. Every month brings newer, darker figures. Each quarter reads like a company bleeding out. But here's the most damning part. This collapse is happening while Harley's competitors are thriving. Indian Motorcycles, Harley's closest rival, reported a 15% sales increase during the same period. Japanese brands like Honda and Yamaha are holding steady, riding out the storm with minimal losses. This isn't a motorcycle industry crisis. It's a Harley crisis. The message is clear. The rebellion has left the building, and the empire it built is cracking at the foundation. By late summer, the pressure was suffocating. Riders were furious, dealerships were panicking, investors were fleeing. Harley's legacy was hanging by a thread. And after months of silence, CEO Jochen Zeitz finally stepped forward. But instead of calming the storm, he drove straight into it. On August 19, 2024, Harley-Davidson released a carefully manicured 427-word statement across its website and social channels. It was framed as a turning point, a public reset meant to restore trust and reassure the faithful. Instead, it read like a legal memo wrapped in corporate jargon. The statement said Harley would refocus on its core values of freedom, individuality, and the open road. It noted the company had not operated a DEI function since April 2024 and had dropped supplier diversity spend goals. The tone was meant to signal a return to tradition, but no one bought it. Within hours, over 15,000 comments flooded Harley's pages. According to Brandwatch Analytics, 78% were negative. Riders didn't see the message as an apology. They saw spin, polished phrases, zero accountability, and worst of all, no mention of the Taliban comparison that had erupted days earlier. It wasn't just what Zeitz said. It was what he refused to say. There was no apology, no recognition of the cultural damage, no admission of collapsing sales or abandoned dealerships. And despite mounting pressure for leadership change, Zeitz stayed put, reaffirming Harley's focus on growing the sport of motorcycling. To many, that phrase was code. More electric bikes, more corporate detachment. This isn't an apology, it's a PR strategy, said industry analyst Tom Peterson. You can't serve old-school Harley riders and ESG investors with the same playbook. Even insiders were stunned. This reads like it was written by people who've never ridden a motorcycle in their lives, said Michael Rodriguez, a former marketing exec. Then came the timing nightmare. The statement dropped just 4 days before the legendary Sturgis Rally. Over 500,000 riders. Harley's Pavilion? A ghost town. Attendance down 65%. Booths half empty. Meanwhile, Indian setup was packed. Music, cheers, test rides. The difference was staggering. One viral clip showed a Vietnam vet with his Harley logo duct taped over. "This was my last one," he said. When that CEO compared himself to the Taliban, I was done. The next day, Zeitz gave a soft interview, brushing off the remark as taken out of context. That sound? 1 million riders logging off in disgust. While executives huddled in boardrooms and PR teams pushed out damage control, the real fallout was unfolding miles away, in towns built on chrome, grease, and loyalty. Harley's dealerships weren't just storefronts. They were pillars of local culture. They were the Friday night hangouts, the charity ride sponsors, the places where veterans and rookies swapped stories over coffee and oil changes. And now, they're dying, fast. Across the country, family-run Harley dealerships are collapsing under the weight of unsold bikes, rising debt, and evaporating trust. These aren't massive corporations with lifelines and lawyers. They're mom-and-pop shops with 40-year legacies and a dozen employees trying to stay afloat in a storm their own brand created. Take John Miller, for example. His Pennsylvania dealership was opened by his grandfather in 1965. Today, it looks like a graveyard. "We've got over $2 million in inventory just sitting here collecting dust," he says. Customers walk in, see the woke messaging, shake their heads, and walk right out. They're buying Indians now. And here's what makes it worse. most of those bikes aren't paid for. Dealers finance their inventory through floor plan loans, which rack up interest daily on every unsold motorcycle. With bikes sitting idle for months, many dealers are burning $30,000 or more each month just to not sell their inventory. It's a slow bleed with no tourniquet in sight. In the last 6 months alone, over 30 Harley dealerships have shut down permanently. Each closure isn't just a loss of business, it's the death of a community hub, a gathering place, a living part of the Harley lifestyle. And the ripple effect is brutal. Parts sales are plummeting. Service bays are sitting idle. Custom shops, local bars, diners, patch vendors, they all depended on the foot traffic Harley once brought. Now, crickets. Some desperate dealers have resorted to covering Harley logos in protest. Others have started discounting merchandise with signs that read, "Final days, no refunds." It's like watching a slow-motion collapse, said a Midwest dealer who asked to remain anonymous. We begged corporate to listen. Instead, they doubled down. Now, we're the ones left holding the bag. The brand that once united a movement is now leaving its most loyal partners stranded. And Main Street? It's bleeding out one showroom at a time. In a bold move to redefine Harley-Davidson's future, CEO Jochen Seitz went all in on electric motorcycles. His flagship gamble? The Livewire, a sleek battery-powered machine positioned as Harley's leap into sustainability, innovation, and modern relevance. But instead of igniting excitement, it became a $22,000 symbol of disconnect. The Livewire 1 launched with all the buzz of a Silicon Valley startup. Marketing lingo flew, zero emissions, digital interfaces, connected ecosystems. But while executives cheered, lifelong riders stared in disbelief. "That's not a Harley," one rider scoffed online. "It's a blender with wheels." Gone was the signature V-twin rumble, the sound that defined Harley's soul. Gone was the raw growl that reverberated in your chest. In its place, a near-silent hum and a price tag north of $22,000 for a machine that couldn't break 150 miles on a single charge. Traditional riders were blindsided. They hadn't been asked. They hadn't been heard. The bikes they spent decades loving were quietly being replaced by something they never wanted. And it showed. In 2023, Harley shipped just 597 Livewire units. A rounding error, a total rejection. Worse still, Harley spun Livewire off into its own separate brand, hoping to stake a claim in the EV market. But instead of signaling innovation, it felt like surrender, a desperate grab at a fantasy audience while alienating the real one. They built a motorcycle for people who don't ride motorcycles, said former executive Mark Thompson, and ignored the ones who actually do. Performance didn't help either. The range was weak, charging infrastructure was limited, and repairs? Costly, confusing, and unfamiliar to most service centers. For long-haul riders, the Livewire was useless. Harley wasn't selling freedom anymore. They were selling a lifestyle product, silent, fragile, and overpriced. In chasing tech world prestige, Harley abandoned what made it iconic, and as Indian, Honda, and Triumph doubled down on heritage, performance, and affordability, Harley dumped millions into a gamble no one asked for. The electric future may still be coming, but Harley tried to lead a revolution without an army, and the silence of those Livewire motors matched only by the silence of the customers who'd already walked away. While Harley-Davidson struggles to explain its identity and salvage its future, the rest of the motorcycle world isn't just watching, they're feasting. Harley's collapse has created a vacuum, and rivals are racing in to fill it, not with corporate slogans or greenwashing, but with bikes riders actually want. Leading the charge is Indian Motorcycles, the reborn American rival that spent the last decade sharpening its blades. Under Polaris Industries, Indian has become everything Harley used to be: powerful, proud, unapologetically built for riders. From the Scout to the Challenger to the Chief, Indian builds bikes that don't just echo tradition, they elevate it. They've stayed loyal to their roots while innovating under the hood. Torque-rich V-twin engines, timeless cruiser styling, no DEI lectures, no sustainability manifestos, just road-gripping performance and unmistakable attitude. And it's working. While Harley's sales fall, Indian reported a 15% revenue increase. Showrooms are packed. Test ride lines wrap around the lot. Riders are switching and not looking back. Indian is building the bikes Harley used to build, said one veteran at Sturgis, and they're not apologizing for it. But Indian isn't alone. The Japanese giants, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki, long known for reliability and value, are storming the cruiser segment Harley once ruled. Honda's Rebel series is converting first-time riders by the thousands. Lightweight, stylish, and affordable, they're everything Harley's newer models aren't. Yamaha's Bolt, Kawasaki's Vulcan, and even the Goldwing have carved out loyal followings, offering high performance, low maintenance, and no corporate confusion. They're not chasing trends, they're delivering machines. Across the Atlantic, European brands are getting their cut of Harley's fading empire. Triumph's Bonneville lineup captures the retro aesthetic Harley abandoned, marrying vintage cool with modern engineering. Their Adventure series has outpaced Harley's failed foray into the category. Royal Enfield, once mocked as budget, has become a cult favorite. Bikes like the Meteor 350 and Interceptor 650 offer timeless charm and unbeatable value, winning over younger riders who want authenticity, not branding. And BMW, their R18 Cruiser was a direct shot at Harley's crown, and it landed. Classic design, German precision, and bulletproof reliability. While Harley chases a new identity, the competition is doubling down on what works. Harley isn't just losing sales, it's losing the soul of American motorcycling. With bikes gathering dust in showrooms and interest payments piling up like wreckage, Harley dealerships across the country have resorted to the last tool left in their arsenal: brutal price cuts. Massive markdowns are now the norm. Discounts of $3,000, $5,000, even $8,000 are being slapped onto high-end models just to get them off the floor. Dealers are throwing in 0% financing, free service packages, accessories, anything to move inventory that no one wants. But the more they cut, the worse things get. Buyers know the game. They see the collapse in motion. They're not biting, they're waiting. Why spend $22,000 on a Harley today when the same bike could be $19,000 next month or $16,000 3 months from now? It's a vicious cycle, one that's gutting dealers and torching the brand's reputation. And it's not just dealerships taking the hit. The cuts are obliterating resale value. Riders who paid top dollar for dream machines just a couple of years ago are discovering those same models are now selling brand new for less than they still owe. A $30,000 touring bike from 2022 might only be worth $21,000 today. That's not depreciation, that's destruction. They can't trade them in, they can't sell them, and they're stuck paying bloated monthly payments on machines that have become financial anchors. The aftermarket is collapsing too. Used Harley prices, once shockingly resilient, are in freefall. The parts and accessories business, long a profit powerhouse, is crumbling alongside it. Riders aren't buying chrome upgrades or new exhausts for bikes they don't want to be seen on anymore. It's a death spiral, said analyst Tom Peterson. The more they discount, the more they devalue their brand. But if they don't, the bikes don't sell. They're trapped, and they did it to themselves. And the tragedy? These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're broken promises, the dreams of first-time Harley buyers who now feel tricked and underwater. The legacy of lifelong riders watching the name they once wore with pride sink beneath a tide of short-term fixes and long-term damage. This isn't just about profit margins, it's about trust, and Harley's running out of it. After everything, the identity crisis, collapsing sales, the failed electric gamble, abandoned dealerships, and vanishing resale values, the question looms: can Harley-Davidson survive this? This isn't just a quarterly earnings dip or a bad product cycle. It's a generational reckoning, a once untouchable American icon now dangling over the edge of irrelevance. For a company that survived 2 world wars and the Great Depression, this crisis cuts deeper, because this time the threat isn't external, it's internal. And if there's any hope of redemption, Harley's leadership needs to stop spinning and start listening. Step 1. Reconnect with the riders who built the brand. Not with buzzwords, but with action. No more vague statements, no more ESG posturing, no more urban mobility jargon. Just real commitment to building motorcycles that roar, that rumble, that matter. Step 2. Fix the pricing. Today's average Harley costs over $22,000, out of reach for most young riders. Meanwhile, competitors offer bikes at nearly half that price. If Harley wants a future, it must make machines people can actually afford. Step 3. Rebuild trust with dealers. Give them autonomy. Stop pushing unsellable models. Start treating them like the lifeblood of the brand, not disposable sales channels. Because Harley's future won't be saved by investors or press releases. It will be saved or lost by the people who ride. People like the veteran who covered his logo at Sturgis, the dealer who shut his family business after 35 years, the rider still paying off a bike now worth less than the trade-in. Riders don't care about corporate virtue signaling, said former exec Mark Thompson. They care about great bikes, the open road, and freedom. Harley forgot that, and now they're paying the price. If the brand keeps chasing a market that doesn't want it, while ignoring the ones who lived for it, Harley won't fade. It'll fall, and the road will go silent. What do you think? Can Harley-Davidson roar back to life, or is this the beginning of the end for an American legend? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more motorcycle industry insights.